Good morning, and a warm welcome to all of you for attending the first session of the Indonesia Economic Forum's Technology Forum. So I'd like to just tell you a few words about why are we doing the Technology Forum. At the very base of it all, 8% economic growth, which President Prabowo is aiming for, would not come without a strong industrialization narrative. And to do industrialization in today's world, where there is economic value, you need high technology. So the role of technology becomes even more important in today's world for countries who are getting into industrialization to choose the right technologies and the best quality technologies. So the Technology Forum was conceived with the purpose of being able to attract the best technologies from all around the world. And we are focusing on specific countries, and the first one is, of course, India. And today we are going to talk about how Indian technology is suitable to play a role in Indonesia's industrialization journey, as well as try to find fitments between the stakeholders on both sides. So that's the reason why this is hosted at the BKPM. I would really thank Nurul to help us with hosting the event here at BKPM. And I warmly welcome all of you to be part of the first session where we explore today how India can play a role in making Indonesia future ready. And therefore, in the multifaceted different sides of it can be explored through a very interesting panel discussion. We have a very excellent panel here today. We have Pa Ilham from PII, we have Ibu Shinta, we have Pa Darmono, we have Pa Sandeep and Pa Nurul also. So a warm welcome to all our panelists today, and we hope that you really enjoy the session today. Feel free to contribute through the Q&A session that would be held towards the end of this. That's it, and thank you very much for being here once again. A warm applause for all of you. Thank you.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good morning, Om Swastiastu, Namo Buddhaya, Salam Kebajikan. So first and foremost, I just would like to deliver a very deep apologies coming from our minister, because it is designed actually for him to be with you for this morning. But since I was also with him last night until a bit late, and we got information that he is he's feeling a bit unwell for this morning. So I do hope that my presence here, of course, it is not in a comparable with the level of the minister, but it doesn't present of lower appreciations of this ministry to all of this forum, and especially for the ambassadors and the organizer for this event. Yes, His Excellency Ambassador Sandeep Chakravorty, Ambassador of India to the Republic of Indonesia, thank you for coming, sir. And also Mr. Sachin Gopalan, the CEO of Indonesia Economic Forum. Thank you for choosing the collaborations with our ministry for this event. And also our very good friends, Ibu Shinta Kamdani, Chairwoman of Indonesia Employers Associations, or APINDO. Thank you, Bu, for keep coming to this office, to this building, especially for many events. And thank you for supporting this event as well. And Bapak Ilham Habibie, as the Chairman of Indonesia Engineers Associations. Thank you, Pak, for coming today. And also, I will convey your regards to the minister. Hopefully, we are going to have a meeting with him late this afternoon. And then also, Pak Darmono, Bapak Setiono Juandi Darmono, Chairman of Jababeka, a very famous person in industrial estate in Indonesia, and one of the founding fathers of the industrial estate in Indonesia. And thank you, Pak, for supporting this event as well. Yes. And also, ladies and gentlemen, the speakers and also colleagues coming from Embassy of India and also from Ministry of Investment and Downstream Industry. Ladies and gentlemen, I think when we talk about this kind of the innovation age for Indonesia, it is very good momentum for us, because we know that the President Prabowo Subianto has already designed, and even government in general, we define about the future Indonesia gold era in 2045. And we know that we are a country that is very rich with the natural resources. We have also many people as our manpower resource in Indonesia, but of course, below the capacity of India. But still, we are on the top four of populous countries around the globe. But then, thinking about reaching the goals of being Indonesia in the golden era in 2045. It is almost impossible if we just think about the richness of natural resources of Indonesia and the abundant availability of manpower availability in Indonesia. Why? Because there should not be business as usual. We have to make a kind of leapfrogging for this. Then human capital is the key for this. And it is not only about human capital in regard into the amount of manpower, but it is about the quality of manpower. And in this regard, the qualified and quality manpower and also abundance of natural resources and also technology, they are being a very key factors for Indonesia for making this kind of leapfrogging. So that's why one of the part of Astacita or 8 missions under our President Prabowo Subianto, developing the human resource in Indonesia is one of our main objective for this. Why? Because the situation that is uncertain currently, this will also give a kind of trigger for Indonesia thinking more creative on this. And creativity is not having a kind of quality without any innovations and technology, because the combinations between good manpower and technology, this will make a kind of innovations to answer the problems that is faced by Indonesia for now and for further going forward until 2045. Because competitions is the main role for the future, and competition will be won only by those who are having competitiveness in a very good way. So that's why then Indonesia is thinking about this track, and I think we have to learn more from India. I spoke with Pak Ilham just now during the meeting before this event. We think we have to appreciate and we have to learn more to India, because India, to some extent, you are some step ahead of Indonesia in terms of technology advancement. And especially, we know that when we talk about IT, your diaspora is globally well known. If the CEO of very, very big companies globally also head by Indians. Even it was once in UK, then was led by Indian diaspora as well. So also in India, you have a good technology. We know that we have a problem with your very big populations, but the creativity and also innovations with the support of technology, finally, this lead also India into a good step being recognized globally in the global stage. So I think this is something that Indonesia needs to learn. Of course, in order to develop source corporations, we have to sit together, we have to work together, because India and Indonesia as a part of South, we have to work together, and especially Indonesia as the biggest country in ASEAN, we have capacity to work together with India. And India, with your technology, with your capacity, with your global presence, this will also give a kind of support to Indonesia to work together. So I think in this case, we could work hand in hand to further collaborate, to give a kind of contributions in significant way between Indonesia and India. And ladies and gentlemen, I just would like also to share with you some important information that we would like also to invite you to work together with us. Because we know that one of the policies coming from the government that we would like to have downstream industry as our priority in developing our economy. And because of this downstreaming industry, industrializations, as did mentioned by Gopalan, it is also the key factors for us. And this industrialization, this downstreaming industry, it means that industrializations is impossible without technology. So that's why we just would like to invite many countries, not only India, but many those who are in a very advanced technology owners countries to work together with us. Because in order to reach the SDGs by 2030, including Indonesia and India, they already ratified about this SDGs, it is impossible for us if we just depend on our own capacity to develop our economy. So that's why a country like Indonesia that is very rich with natural resources, as a kind of comparative advantage that we are having, we would like to invite those who are having technology, having capacity of in the market, and also having capacity into the access to a bigger ecosystem for this industry. We just would like to invite those countries to work together in a very good cooperation between countries having comparative advantages like Indonesia and India with those who are having capital and technology as a kind of competitive advantages. Because this is the era of collaborations between these groups of countries if we would like to contribute something better in the world. And of course, limitations is also being a kind of borders for us. But we know that since the populations keep growing, and we need also to be a countries that is providing prosperity for our people. But we know It was also mentioned by a professor in Oxford University, Katie Raworth, that in this age of 21st century, we have the new dogma for this, which is called by the donut of economy. The donut means the first inner circle is the limitations, the least situations. If we would like to have a kind of decent living, then we have to be on this circle. We cannot go lower than this, because if we are going to be in the lower level of this, then we are not having a kind of decent living for our people. But getting bigger access into better level, we have also the limitations, the outer circle of this, that will be limited by the carrying capacity of the earth, and also feeling of protections into our environment, that so far the only planet in this universe that could be lived by humanity. So I think this is something that we have to move in between two circles, so that we could make a kind of innovations in order to increase our prosperity, but we still protect our environment. And this again then, technology and innovations being the key factors for us. And ladies and gentlemen, I think that's the things that we just would like to share with you. So welcome to this event. I know that you are going to have very fruitful discussions with this. And as a government institution that is issuing the license for you and doing promotion for investment in direct investment, we are more than happy to welcome you again, not only for this event, but I do hope you will come again to check and to ask and to seek for our assistance in doing investment in Indonesia. I thank you.
First of all, I'd like to thank Pa Nurul. Thank you very much, Pa, for your opening address. Also for the warm welcome given to all the Indian companies who are here. May I ask you, for the show of hands, how many people have been to the BKPM building before? Okay, and have you been to this particular venue? Okay, okay, great. So we are very proud to collaborate with the Ministry of Investment and BKPM, because this becomes an engagement for the whole year to work closely with BKPM to help facilitate investments into Indonesia, with the intention of curating the kind of investments that need to come here. So they have identified a few sectors. We're going to talk a little bit about that today in the panel as well. But I think what is important here is, what is the narrative? Why are we all here? What is it that we're trying to do? And what is the opportunity that we have? If you can see, the topic here is the innovation edge. And we're looking at how the two countries, India and Indonesia, can collaborate for a future-ready economy. I think the key here is future-ready economy, because we are seeing a lot of disruption in the world today. There are the trade wars that are going on. There are a lot of shifts in supply chains that are taking place, and I think more is yet to come. We are finding alliances and partnerships that were not thought of before. I think the norm was to work with a handful of countries, and today that has dissipated. Now, if we are finding a more an equalization of alliances and partnerships, which are now based on almost starting from zero. So you would look at the DNA of what your relationship should be from a business, economy, and technology perspective, and then start making those. We are starting from zero almost. So I think the opportunity comes in re-looking at who has what, where, and how can we work together. And I think this forum is especially created, and we launched it, this is the first inaugural event, in order to explore those kind of ideas. How can we re-look and not just do things the way we are being used to doing, but look for new ways, innovative ways, find innovation in everything that we do, including this process here, okay? So that is one. The second thing is, I'd like to just state that while we are seeing a large disruption in the world, which is essentially triggered by two nations, US and China on the other side, I think this opens up an opportunity. There is an economic and business opportunity here that we need to find, which we can embrace. And I think discussions like this would trigger those kind of ideas. Why is India being highlighted? And it's basically because I think there has, like how Pa Nurul said in his speech, there is a proven leadership, global leadership expressed by India, especially in digital public infrastructure, AI, smart manufacturing, fintech, healthcare, education, etc. And it's time to take a look at what are these alliances and how can they benefit working with the Indonesian ecosystem here. And aligning with the Indonesia 2045 vision is something Pa Nurul mentioned as well. I think that's an important milestone that we can aspire to, which will help us to focus some of our energies towards a common goal. And I think the most important thing is leveraging India's innovation ecosystem. That's the key here. I was in IIT Madras just last week, and I saw the innovation center there. And that's an innovation center not only by students, but also by the alumni of IIT. And they expressed that they want to set up an innovation center in Jababeka. So that's the kind of, IIT Madras is like the MIT of India, right? So that's the kind of interest that Indian companies are now showing, that there is a frontier in Indonesia, and it's probably centered around very near Jakarta. And alliances can be formed in order to create a new chapter in the relationship between India and Indonesia, which I really believe should be based on technology more than trade or more than services. Technology and industrialization is probably the next era that we need to focus on. So without further ado, I'd like to move on to my panelists. First of all, one more round of applause for our panelists. And we'll get started right away. In fact, I thought of the opening salvo would be to Pa Sandeep. So I have a series of questions, which I think, the idea is to have a framework. But more than that, I would like to take off on what you say in order to create a narrative that's flowing. So Pa Sandeep, you were in India on the 26th of January with President Prabowo, where with Prime Minister Modi, and a lot of discussions were held. And in fact, there was a CEO forum, and at the end of it, some MOUs were also signed. And I wanted to hear from you, what do you think are the mechanisms that are required to ensure that such kind of agreements can be translated into real on-the-ground impact? Because a lot of MOUs have been signed in the past. How can it be different? What are the things that we need to do in the room, maybe with the help of BKPM or with the other counterparts here, that will help us realize some of those objectives during your tenure where you're here?
Thank you, Sachin, for your remarks and also for organizing this event. I think BKPM and this ministry is critical for exactly the things that you mentioned, in the sense that, what we want to do with Indonesia. Somehow or the other, those roads pass through this ministry. And we have, I think it's very important first to thank my co-panelists, Dr. Habibie, Darmono, and Shinta. But there is another person who is sitting to my left who is very important, and I think all investors and Indians present in this room who are doing business in Indonesia should have his Pa Cahyo's number on speed dial. Because, and if you don't have it, then you are missing something in Jakarta and Indonesia. So I think the short answer to your question is that we need more Pa Cahyos. We need a very emboldened and empowered Pa Cahyo, because I think the first byproduct or impact or result of President Prabowo's visit to India was the heightened interest of Indian corporates and companies to come to Indonesia. I think that impact is being felt in the embassy, and many others who work on the India-Indonesia corridor. In fact, some of that impact I have passed on to Pa Habibie also, and hopefully some of it will be passed on to Pa Darmono in the coming months and years. But I am certainly seeing a great interest in Indonesia from Indian corporates. We have signed a few MOUs. I think the most, impactful MOU was the health MOU. Because there is great deal of opportunity for cooperation in the health sector, and certain seismic changes in the Indonesian health ecosystem is slowly taking place, and they will change the ground, and it will allow Indian investment and Indian doctors and Indian expertise to come into Indonesia. Having said that, I think one important development has been the greater interest of Indonesia in our DPI, which is the digital public infrastructure. Soon after President Prabowo's visit, we organized a visit by a delegation, a multi-ministry delegation led by DEN, which is the Diwan Economic National under Paluhut. They went to India and they visited several institutions involved in our digital transformation. And we are hoping to get more involved in the Indonesia's digital public infrastructure. In fact, we have here the presence of certain companies. I think Geeta is there from eMudra, there she is. Yes. She is closely working with institutions in Indonesia. And sometimes, you know, organizing events attracts investment. You need not worry too much about investment. It comes walking through your doors. So we have Paytm here. I think they have already finalized their MOU with Flip. So we will find more presence of Indian companies in the payment infrastructure. But I was reading newspaper reports that President Trump doesn't like these digital payments. You know, unless you use Visa and MasterCard, they are very unhappy. So I don't know how to deal with that problem, which is actually landed up on Indonesian door. They don't like the CRIS system. But I think if they don't like CRIS, then I don't know how much they will like UPI, because that is an even more big payment system. So I am, but the jokes apart, what I'm trying to say is that there is great deal of interest. We have Pa Manish here. He representing at the moment, he's actually transitioning, and he is representing TCS Tejas. TCS Tejas has shown great deal of interest in Indonesia. In fact, their CEO would be coming to Jakarta next week, and they want to get into the telecom sector. They want to, but their involvement will not be buying, selling kind of arrangement. They want to work with Indonesia. They want to establish in Indonesia. So I am seeing great deal of interest from the Indian corporate sector, and I think you see, government can only show the way. You know, we do not have mechanisms, unlike in some other countries where the government is an investor, or government, government-owned companies or SOEs, they do the flag bearing. In our case, as India is a market economy, we can only show the way. We provide facilitation, but at the end of the day, it is corporates and companies which will work and build the relationship. And I think that is happening. We have a sizable presence of Indian companies here, but that number is growing by the day. In fact, today only I met new partners who are wanting to open a business in Indonesia. So I think that is happening. And what we should also remember is that, in fact, at this moment, today is the 23rd of April. During this time, 70 years back, the Bandung conference was being held. We are commemorating the 70th anniversary. But I have been saying, and yesterday also I said in an IBC forum, that we should look at Bandung 2.0. And Bandung 2.0 is not a political formation. It should be more economic integration between economies of the South. Bandung 2.0 means India, Indonesia, countries in the South, working more closely on trade, technology, investment, partnering, digitalization, education, health. I think this is the challenge which has been thrown up at us by some countries and some leaders, and we should not react impulsively to that challenge, and we should not also make the wrong choices. You know, if some major power is saying, you know, I want to deal with you at my terms, it doesn't mean that we run to other major powers and deal with them at their terms. It means we should work more with each other. And I think the Indian presence in Indonesia represents that hope, that aspiration. And, you know, for instance, Darmono's idea of IndiaTechZone, I think you'll speak about it. But moment I mentioned that to Indian companies and investors, they get very, very excited. So we'll hear more about that from Darmono. And we have been having discussions. In fact, I will not reveal details, but Habibie himself has been involved in discussions with Indian companies who want to come to Indonesia. So I think that is happening. We want more of it to happen. But we also don't want to get into this MOU and announcement phase. I was just telling Nurul that there are Indian investments at the doorsteps. We just need a little bit of push to open those doors. And I think BKPM does a fabulous job out of it. And yesterday a major Indian group was here. they need facilitation and they provide that facilitation. So I'm so happy that we are doing this event here, and all those who are present in this room, if they need facilitation, I think the door to knock is right here, and Pa Cahyo has always been a great champion of. I just tell him that he deals a little bit more with China. He should look a little bit more at India. I think that is my only complaint with Pa Cahyo. Thank you.
Thank you, and that was a great opening. So like we say, if you have a good performance, on the blue corner is Pa Sandeep. So I'm going to go to, on the red corner is Pa Darmono. And I'm going to ask Pa Darmono to cover the other specter. If you have had a good view of where India is coming from, let's hear a little bit from Pa Darmono of the readiness of Indonesia and the opportunity of Indonesia. So Pa Darmono, I'd like to ask you, how can industrial estates like Jababeka evolve to become smart manufacturing hubs in partnership with Indian technology firms? What is your thinking about this collaboration between India and Indonesia so that we can understand the end goal of industrialization, which always happens in your property? So some thoughts and ideas about that from you, Darmono. That will give us a little bit of a narrative to go around with Ibu Shinta, who brings up some very important parts of the discussion with Ilham as well. And then I believe Pa Cahyo also wants to share a deck with us, Pa. There's some information that he'd like to share with us. So we'll have a pretty interesting morning today. Over to you, Pa Darmono.
Thank you, Sachin. Well, I was actually inspired by Sachin and Ambassador Chakravorty for doing something between India and Indonesia, particularly in our estate in Jababeka. Because, Indonesia and India both are actually very large. And when you talk about big, it's grand, but also cumbersome and complex. And small is beautiful, right? So, we take Singapore, for example. Singapore is small, but really has been very good in developing the country to become, like today, the most expensive country in the world. So I was thinking that if we can work together with India, we have to focus on actually a smaller area. And Jababeka was started in 1989, 36 years ago, with that sort of concept that small is beautiful. So we must build the ecosystem in that area. It's so complete that easy for investors to come and doing their business. We have many governments, like also in India. We have central government, we have provincial government, we have residential and so on, even the village chief and so on. They have powers. So we need to make it in a smaller area, like an authoritative zone, or now it's called special economic zone. So in Jababeka, which is now 36 years old, we have 7 industrial estates with other companies like Marubeni with it MM2100, Sumitomo, Egypt, and Hyundai, and also Sochitsu with Deltamas. Totally, there are several industrial estates in Bekasi area, which is in Cikarang and Cibitung. Totally, this area is about 200 square kilometers. And total Bekasi Regency is 1,200 square kilometers. Shenzhen is 2,000 square kilometers. So if we take that comparison, Cikarang, which now consists of 7 estates, and we as the pioneer back in 1989, we've been building infrastructure inside the industrial estate, power plant, water treatment plant, waste treatment plant, dry port, all the requirement for the industry like universities, polytechnic, hospitals, housing, and so on. So this is where it's much easier for investors to come and work together with us. 36 years ago, our competitive edge was cheap land and cheap labors. But it's no longer cheap in that area now, in West Java. So we built another industrial estate in Central Java called Kendal Industrial Park with Singapore, which is now about 7 years old. But the ecosystem is not as great as Bekasi or Cikarang area yet. And in Kendal, again, our competitive edge is cheap land cheap labors again. So I'm thinking that with India now, with high-tech zone, we can work together to actually display, to demonstrate Indian technology. As you mentioned before, you said that the CEOs in a lot of big companies in United States are Indian professionals. Now, even the Prime Minister of UK was once Indian. But not many people in Indonesia actually recognize the technology, the advanced development of India. So I think if India displayed the technology and all the might in Jababeka, in that area, to start with Jababeka, it would be Cikarang in the future. I don't think there will be any more like Lipo Cikarang, Jababeka, it would be Cikarang Baru, or the new Cikarang, which is an international zone. So if everybody now wants to have Chinese food, where do they go? They go to Pantai Indah Kapau. I talked to Sachin, and I think if everybody wants to eat Indian food, they must go to Cikarang in Jababeka. If they want to see Indian movies, go to Cikarang. Everybody in Indonesia knows about Indian movies. Yeah. And many international people, they like Indian food. But where do they go in Jakarta? Yeah, it's, maybe there are Ganesas, yeah. But it should be concentrated in one area so that it's become so distinguished, it's easy to find. All Indian excellence are in that place. I always joke with our ambassador here. Why Borobudur Temple, the most beautiful Buddhist temple in the world, was in Jawa, in central Jawa, my hometown. Why Prambanan, the most beautiful Hindu temple, is in Yogyakarta, not in India? Because India is so large. It's difficult for people all over the world to see the beauty of it. So let's repeat it again now, after 1,500 years or what, that let's have now the cooperation of India and Indonesia in Cikarang with the Indian tech. Then everybody, not only in Indonesia, I think all over the world, they want to see the beautiful technology, the high tech of India, the might of India come to Jawa, like Borobudur before. Well, I think that is first the dream. Now you talk about what we have in terms of ecosystem. Now I went to Yiwu in China. It's the largest trading city in the world. Yeah. Yiwu is in Zhejiang, near to Hangzhou. Yeah, they have branches all over the world, 180 something countries. And you can order very small, simple thing made in India, but could be delivered from Yiwu to all over the world within a short time. So this is the area where I have also a dream that Cikarang, with our Cikarang Airport, can also transfer goods very quickly all over the world. So if you want to sell your goods to all over the world, actually we can cooperate from Cikarang. Because, you know, when you go to Bali, you buy batiks. Is it made in Bali? No. It's made in Pekalongan, or made in Solo, made in Jakarta. So actually the display of giant shopping mall is very important to improve, to increase the sales and also the margin. Because trading is actually, the volume is big, yeah, and we can increase the value added by display, packaging, and so on in a place like Bali. Bali is more for tourism, right? But we can make now the industrial tourism also in Cikarang. So this is the one which I think the time is opportune when now US put a higher tariff and so on. It's a time when India, Southeast Asia, and maybe even Asia can overtake the Western economy. Like when you have a car racing, this is in the corner when we can overtake with this kind of situation now. So the time is very opportune, and we can work together in many, many areas. There are more than 5,000 factories in Cikarang from 39 countries. So we don't have to go anywhere. We just concentrate in there, and we can have a cooperation in education. We can have research cooperation in that area. There is President University in Jababeka, in Cikarang, which is the first university in Indonesia which use English as the medium of instruction. We have students from 39 countries today after 20 years or 22 years operation. And the name is presidency. I always said to our president, this belongs to you, Mr. President, when you are still president. So this get a lot of support from government because we are doing what government is supposed to do, which is to create jobs and to educate people. So this is the best link for investors if to do business in Cikarang. It doesn't have to be in Jababeka. It can be anywhere in Cikarang with Lipo Cikarang, with Hyundai, HE. There is this Mr. Shinta Kamdani is my good friend, he's the chair of APINDO. Also, she doesn't represent only her company, but she represents the whole companies of Indonesia, the employers of Indonesia. It's the same with Jababeka. We always think that we are doing it for the country. So don't take it that this is just for our industrial estate, but you can go to any other because the ecosystem there, combine the 7 industries together, become much, much stronger. We have Iron Mall in Delta Mas. Jababeka has got only Living Plaza, not as big as the Ion. But the others do not have golf course. We have one of the best golfs in Indonesia. And we have presidency. We have Botanic Gardens, 500 hectares there. Jababeka alone employs more than 1 million people. So 7 industries there together, I think could be easily 2 million people there. And it's the fastest growing city in Indonesia. And also fastest growing minimum wage too. So we have to go to higher technology. We have to move from just simple manufacturing into trading city, some industrial city, into healthcare and so on. So I'm talking to Sachin as a cooperation with India on healthcare, building international hospitals, because the gap now between many countries about the cost of healthcare, for example, in Europe and advanced countries to Indonesia, it's so big gap. So we can offer now also cheap labors, but in medical side. We can also offer high tech, much cheaper also, especially when we talk about AI, about robotic and so on. India has got all the technology, and we can together we can compete. Also, we can bring in the Chinese. So the Asia become the new power game in the world. So only I think together like that, with this collaboration, then we can prosper and possibly overcome this kind of chaotic situation in the world now. Is that enough to start with?
Yes, Pa, thank you. So as you all may know, Pa Darmono has a book. It's called Think Big, Start Small, and Move Fast. So you can see that, many of the remarks he made was very much in line with the philosophy that he believes in. Think big is the whole idea of how Cikarang can become one of the smartest cities in all of Southeast Asia, or maybe South Asia. And the ingredients of that, India has a role to play there. Okay, so I'd like to now move to Ibu Shinta. Ibu Shinta, I'd like you to pick up on what Sandeep as well as Pa Darmono said. And you are the chairman of APINDO, and you're also an entrepreneur. And I know you've been supporting startups in a big way all these years. And you understand innovation very well. So the question I'd like you to address is, actually now that we have set the stage with what Pa Darmono and Pa Sandeep has said, what are the things that we should be doing? So, ecosystems that will drive mutual economic transformation, right? And especially in sectors like digital technology, green energy, health tech, because you champion a lot of sustainability issues in the country. And you are seen as one of the persons who are championing a more sustainable world, not just Indonesia, but how Indonesia interacts with the rest of the world. So what are some of your thoughts of how we can leverage on the innovation ecosystems on both sides, India as well as Indonesia, specifically in some areas which you believe are more important in the context of this partnership?
Yes, thank you very much, Sachin, and thank you for this opportunity. Actually, before I touch answering specifically on your question, I wanted to trigger a little bit on because we have been discussing many times about Indonesia, India opportunities and what we can do together. I think high-level visit has happened. I mean, the latest high-level visit from the president, I think we have set up 5 working group, if I'm not mistaken, including healthcare, green energy, and so forth. But this is not the first time. What I'm saying is, I'm sure many of the Indian companies that are here has really experienced that Indonesia and India does want to enhance the bilateral cooperation. I think the question is, have we succeeded in doing that? I have to say that I really appreciate Ambassador Sandeep that you have really pushed through, you know, a lot of the things that has been perhaps not fast enough on making things happening. And one area that I think you have also looked into is looking at new companies. You know, I think we've seen some of the major Indian that has been here, but we forgot that many of the companies are not just the big conglomerates, but they are also the small, medium enterprises. And medium companies are everywhere. And the question always lies, if we open the door, and I'm sure, I mean, I'm also helping the Ministry of Investment here, a special advisor, we are actually opening for all companies. Betul ya Pak Choi ya? We don't want to just have the big ones, but we also want SMEs. The question is, how can we do it, right? When we look at Indonesian market, we've seen that several countries are dominating, right? Why are they dominating? First, they come, of course, the innovation part is big, but many innovation does not, technology does not come from one country. I think many countries in the world have technology that they have to offer. So second question is the financing aspect. That's also a biggie, right? I mean, there are companies that want to invest, that's one thing, but there are companies that we need to find third-party financing. And sometimes the financing does not, come together with the investment. So in other words, this is why some countries are able to package it together and move faster. But the other element that is very, very important is obviously for doing business in Indonesia. So I wanted to touch that actually what is happening currently with the Trump tariff and everything has actually become a wake-up call also for Indonesia. Because a lot of what Trump is complaining about market access is the non-tariff barriers. So deficit is one thing, that's something we have to take care of. But the non-tariff barriers, and the non-tariff barriers lies a lot with the regulatory aspect, licensing aspect, and so forth, which is actually happening and experienced by many investors, not just the US investors. So this is actually a wake-up call for Indonesia, because we have actually done many structural reform, including the omnibus lately, but we know that the problem lies in the implementation, the devil lies in the implementation. So now the government is looking into how we can do more deregulation, we can see that a lot of course, our labor-intensive sector has been impacted. So what I'm saying is, Indonesia now is going to get the act together and really open up to see specific issues and what they can deregulate. But what I'm saying is, for you companies, especially for SMEs, investors that want to come to Indonesia are also competing with other investors. So I think what Pak Darmono was mentioning about being very much targeted is very important. So what we are trying to do as a business organization is also to help you look at potential partners, right? I mean, this is really the key. Because by having the partnership with Indonesian, it's going to fast track whatever you want to do in Indonesia and targeted on specific things. So I want to touch on the innovation side as your question. We've seen the data, I think in innovation index, India scored 38.3, Indonesia 30.6. But interesting is the quote that I want to take perform above expectation for their level of development based on income level. This is what it said out there, right? So we want to innovate. I think Indonesia with brain, they want to innovate, right? Now, but when we look at the sectors, let's just focus on the sectors. First, on the digital. We've talked a lot about the IT and so forth. You know, we talk a lot about startups. Yes, I work a lot with the startup ecosystem and so forth. We are booming in terms of startups. We talk about fintech. We talk about the payment system and so forth in terms of digital. It's all, I think India is very much leading in this. So we need to look at, you know, where specifically area that Indian can work with Indonesian company to develop this. But what I wanted to also touch is not just the digital payment and so forth, but also on the automatization for the manufacturing industry. You know, part of the weakness that our labor intensive has right now is the automatization. It's very clear, we can't compete. We are right now, of course, the laying off of people, and it's not just due to innovation, no. But we do have to innovate. The automation needs to happen. And I think this is something that Indonesia want to push, but can India really play a role? Because factories are all over out there, and we're not talking about just the big factories. Even the medium-sized factories now needed even more this technology to automate. So I think there is big opportunity to go there, you know, where India companies can come in. The second part that has not been touched upon is on the green technology side, especially on renewable. I don't have to say, because they always tells me, you know, look at the solar business in India. You're like leading it, right? But why? Why, Ambassador? I think it's not enough Indian company does renewable in Indonesia. So this is always the question. And then people say, but they want to come to Indonesia, Shinta. We already, you know, they come anytime, delegation. But why it's not happening? Now, this is where it lies, right? What are the challenges that somehow the deal cannot go through? Yes, there are many companies from different countries are competing, but is there something that we can do from the Indonesian side? And I think when we talk about renewable energy, actually this is a big space that Indonesia still have a lot of homework to do on the regulatory aspect, on the feed-in tariff aspect, you know, because as you know, Indonesia right now are still subsidized fossil fuel. So a lot of the pricing are not really there, right? But definitely, if you look at opportunities, we have so much opportunity on renewable, even solar, because we are going into many of the remote areas. So what I'm saying is, you know, we need to perhaps be targeting on, let's say, solar, which companies of India wants to go which projects of Indonesia. And this is why we can together work with the Ministry of Investment to look at the specific projects and why are the Indian companies not really here significantly. So we need to drive this together, and we're ready. I mean, I think one thing that we want to do also, we want to make things happen. So what are the hurdles? Why we are not doing enough here? And I think the third thing that I want to touch is the healthcare. I think definitely we are looking into healthcare. First, the healthcare infrastructures. Indonesia is still there. This is some of the challenges we have. The healthcare infrastructure is huge. But we are also looking into, of course, pharmaceuticals. For the longest time, Indonesia has been trying to cooperate with Indian companies for the raw materials. Why? Because 80% of our materials for pharma is still imported. Can we develop this industry in Indonesia? Can you help us, you know, not just the downstreaming, the upstreaming? we want to get those industry here in Indonesia. And I think this is a priority for the Indonesian government. So how can we make this happen? I can share specifically our company, one of our company called Pharma is working very closely with your pharma company to make this happen. But it has been quite some time. We need to make it through because India is very, very strong with this. And of course, the telemedicine and so forth. This is also a big opportunity. So what I'm saying is here, we know what are the opportunities. How can we unlock the hurdles so to fast track the Indian companies to be here? We have a strong embassy here. I mean, Ambassador has been tried on all levels to really push this through. But we need to go to the details. You know, what are the issues? And I think the Investment Coordinating Board, the Ministry of Investment is also Patek ready. I've proposed to have an Indian desk specifically at the BKPM. And because I said to our son, you know, we can't afford not to have India here. So, you know, we will hopefully be able to do that, and I will make sure that this can happen. Thank you.
Oh, that was awesome. Thank you, Ibu Shinta. You know, Ibu Shinta touched upon a very important point that, you know, we need to find ways to make things happen. Because we can do a lot of talk, but how do we walk the walk? And that's something with the India Business Desk would really help. Thank you for that, Ibu. I'm going to go to Ilham. Ilham is the chairman of Indonesian Association of Engineers, or Persatuan Insinyur Indonesia. He's also the chief executive of the National ICT Council, or Mantiknas, as you know. So he's been in the center of technology developments, not to mention the fact that his father is President B.J. Habibie, who's already known as the father of technology for Indonesia, who founded much of the industry in Indonesia. So there's a heavy legacy, Ilham, that you know, you are enacting, and that's great. I wanted to hear a little bit your views on, you know, everybody talks AI, digital healthcare, that's one thing. But I think there are many other hidden aspects of Indian technology and innovation that can apply here. I wanted to hear some views on some different kind of thinking. What do you think is your view of how India and Indonesia should collaborate, and what sectors and what technologies? Over to you, Ilham.
Well, thank you very much, Sachin. Yeah, maybe give a little different angle to the whole discussion, because I'm speaking here on behalf of more technical organizations, namely the Indonesian Association for Engineers and also the National ICT Council. So talking about, so I'm not going to talk about digital. You mentioned some things already. We talked a little bit already. Shinta mentioned something about solar energy, which is certainly something Indonesia wants to embrace more in the future. It's happening right now on small scale, but mostly at the moment more rooftop, because the major problem is that Indonesia, the rules and regulation for doing large-scale solar power energy providers is still a little bit cumbersome. If you have to deal with PLN, the state-owned enterprise, it's not so easy. So, but if you do like B2B, basically you have a solar energy technology, you want to work with a company or whole industrial estate, I think like Jababeka, and the energy is only delivered to the tenants at that's feasible, and that's something that works already, and we have seen a large uptake on those kind of projects in the last year, actually. But you were asking about other technology and other things, and I think I should maybe something more conventional, if I may say it, like how about automotive? I mean, we know that Indonesia has a quite developed automotive industry. All of them are actually coming from outside Indonesia. We have a large presence of Japanese companies. We have a large presence of Korean and more Chinese. We know that India has also an automotive industry, and that includes, of course, motorcycles. And I think there's a point in perhaps also collaborating on that regard. It's not just adding just another brand, but there might be a room for innovation, whereby I think Indonesia's dream since many, many years has been to have something more national in that regard. And if Indonesia and India could co-create a national brand, that I think still has some room in Indonesia to grow. However, I know that at the moment we have a capacity of 3 million cars, and Indonesia only absorbs less than 2, maybe at the moment less than 1.5, and the rest is hopefully being exported or not used at the moment, but we have to think in, long term. Indonesia is the largest country within ASEAN. In ASEAN, you have one more center of excellence for automotive industry, which is basically Thailand. And there's sort of like a division of work between both. I mean, the products, the models that are produced in Thailand are not quite the same like in Indonesia. The size is approximately the same. I think the trend is for Indonesia to overtake Thailand right now. When it comes to motorcycle, for sure, Indonesia is the second largest after India, actually. Yeah? India is the largest motorcycle market in the world, and then comes Indonesia. People in the room might be dazzled. What about China? They are very large, but they produce different motorcycles, mostly electric. And in India and Indonesia, it's mostly non-electric. So I'm talking about the conventional piston engine-driven motorcycles and cars, actually. And for countries like Indonesia, yes, we dream about electrification on both sectors, automotive and motorcycles. But I think the reality is it will need time because Indonesia's infrastructure is not quite ready to basically deliver a large growth in electrification of vehicles, be it cars or motorcycles or trucks or buses. It's growing, but it will need time. So the room for the conventional industry is still there. And so I think that's definitely room for innovation regarding collaboration. Now, as a engineer, yeah, for me, if people ask me, Ilham, what's most important for Indonesia? It's basically what I would call the reindustrialization. Yeah? And if I look around in the world, I can see that even in countries that are way, way more advanced than us in Indonesia, even what we call the most advanced country in the world, which is United States, that topic is number one. What President Trump is doing is actually a forced reindustrialization. Because everybody knows, actually, that without having a strong and innovative industry, we will never be an advanced country. And for the countries that are already advanced, if they don't retain their superiority in industry, whatever the industry is, they will not remain a superior country. And so I think that was something that President Trump and some other people realized. Yes, I know most of us disagree with the way things are being done, but their goal is reindustrialization. They want to get those technologies, factories, industries, and the center of innovation back to the United States from wherever it is right now. And I think for Indonesia and India, that's the way to go too. So innovation is one of the core of our future strength that we should further strengthen, further grow, and therefore this is something I cannot, stop to just more always emphasize it. But people ask me, Ilham, so what kind of innovation is that? I think all of that has been already mentioned. Of course, it's digital today. You can't do anything in the future without being digital in a way. You mentioned that. I won't say too much about it. Renewable energy is something I think we have to look at. Indonesia, in that regard, is a bit different than India because we have forms of renewable energy that India does not have, like geothermal. Indonesia is the second largest in the world and has the ambition to overtake the United States in terms of geothermal. We have also other things which seem to be exotic, but room for innovation, like ocean current. You can imagine a country with 70% water and lots of ocean current in between islands. It's something quite feasible. Yeah, I've seen projects that were born from technology providers, countries like United Kingdom or Italy. They have developed that, but they don't have the application. In Indonesia, we have lots of that, and I think this would be a form of something that I could think one day Indonesia will maybe be known as a country which delivers a significant portion of its renewable energy from ocean current. Yeah. And the third one I think I should also still mention it, is sustainability, but what to say about sustainability, I think we need to adhere more and more to the concept of a so-called circular economy. Circular economy means, of course, and from the very beginning, and there's lots of room for innovation, whenever we conceptualize a product, then basically we have to think from the very beginning, what do we do with this once it's not used anymore? So from the very beginning, yeah, I mean to say truly circular. Some of it is being reused, some is being recycled, some of the things are being reduced, so you don't use that much anymore, but those design principles are deliver quite a big room for innovation if we include that from the very beginning. I think our world of tomorrow will be much more circular, so we have to basically, as I said, it's a design principle that we have to adhere to from the very beginning, and to the best of my knowledge, it will deliver a big portion of the future economy. So if you think about that from the very beginning, it's not just being more environmentally friendly or using renewable energy, but it's also the way we think about our world in terms of producing and reproducing from the things that we have already used. Yeah, I think that's what I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Ilham. Very insightful.
Yes.
I would say that, it's reindustrialization is definitely happening, and we can see it around us. In fact, probably Indonesia is also should be thinking in terms of how it can consolidate the industries that it has and shift towards the right selection, the curated. That's the word which I think Shinta was trying to mention, that we must select, pick and choose where we should focus. So I actually want to ask Cahyo to come in now, because I wanted Cahyo to first hear what are the key positions taken on by our eminent panelists today, so that he could respond with a little bit on where BKPM is and how BKPM sees itself readying up to this challenge. After Cahyo, I'm going to go back to the panelists to talk about two things which they mentioned, which I caught my attention. The first one is the IndiaTechZone, and I think that's a brilliant idea, and we should hear a little bit more about it and also interact with the audience about that. And the second is the India Business Desk, which I believe is a counterpart which will be in the BKPM, which Shinta talked about, which he wants to champion. And maybe some inputs regarding that can be the closing session of our session. So over to you, Cahyo.
Thank you, Pak Sachin. I think first and foremost, I'd like to once again welcome you all at our ministerial office. It's always a pleasure for us to work with you, with any other organizer. And this is also part of what we do at the Ministry of Investment, to basically do a number of things. Of course, it's always important for us to create a favorable investment climate in Indonesia, to be more attractive. Again, many speakers are talking about, how the current situation, is putting us on a difficult position. And, apart also from our job to attract investment, to promote some investment opportunities and so on and so forth, we also provide the so-called, aftercare services to the existing, investors. Yeah. So not only focusing on the new investors or new investments, and of course for that purpose we, within our ministry, we have Division of Labor. For me and my team, we are catering mostly on East Asia, South Asia, including India, of course, the most important, country, in South Asia and Middle East and so on and so forth. And it's always important for us also, when we begin our, activities, to keep in mind our investment realization target. Last year, we were able to attract a little over $100 billion US. Not only foreign investment, but also domestic direct investment in Indonesia. Of course, this number does not, include investment in the upstream oil and gas and financial sector. And this year, this target is even higher. I think close to 20% higher. So it will be, I think, to my knowledge, close to $120 billion US this year. And next year will be even higher. Again, to the extent that hopefully by maybe 2-3 years from now, we'll be able to support the 8 years, the 8% of economic growth target. So again, for us, to be able to, meet our target or even exceed our target, it's always important to engage with the existing investors, with the potential investors, and many others things that we need also to basically keep in mind. I'd like to highlight, Ibu Shinta earlier. If we take a look at the India's investment numbers at the moment, of course, I think thanks to your hard work and leadership, Your Excellency Ambassador, we've seen, the investment realization of India in Indonesia has increased from 127 million US dollar last 2 years to 275 million, last year. So I think again, you work very hard. Thank you. And of course, I'd like to acknowledge, all the stakeholders. I mean, I know, you've been very busy, doing many things. And we believe, again, I'd like to highlight one of the key sectors that I'm afraid is still not clearly present in Indonesia, the strength of India's pharma sector, Of course, we know a number of Indian companies now. Let's say last December, I attended the groundbreaking ceremony of the MSN Ready. Again, and I have an interesting story to tell you, Pak Sachin. Yeah. When they invited us, it was clearly stated in the invitation letter. This is Saturday morning, 7 a.m. And at the time, I asked Pak Rafi, the MS Ready official, are you sure you're going to do this on Saturday morning at 7 a.m.? Yeah, because this is, puja, and of course it's. So I said, okay, fine. So we'll be there. And then, again, it was, a successful, groundbreaking ceremony. And again, just a testament of how, we can, basically, do more, to, again, be able to provide more support and assistance to the, Indian companies making business in Indonesia. And I'm also happy that my team is also now working with another Indian companies. I think they will expand, their manufacturing base in Semarang by having, I think, the second expansion, projects. And of course, I'm also happy to, say we have Pak Rajendra, from ASEAN Minda. His first investment, I think, is doing pretty well, and now expanding, with the new location. And, we know despite some challenges, the company keeps going. And again, there are many other things, many other so-called, success stories that can be shared. Of course, we know, we are not perfect. There are many shortages and shortcomings, but again, way open. This is also the rules that we have. We only have 2 rules, Pak Sachin. Number 1 is to be easily reachable and accessible. Okay. Number 2, it's coming back to the rule number 1. So our door is always open. We should, again, we should be able to provide, more support and assistance. Again, we believe any foreign investors, whenever they come to any country like Indonesia, they have many questions. They have some concerns. So it's our job, to basically, provide, some supports. And what we always tell them is that in each and every step of your key, investment journey in Indonesia, will be at, your side. They will never basically walk alone. Thank you, Pak Sachin.
Thank you, Pak Cahyo. Big applause for him. I think he made a key point here that the relationship between BKPM and investors is not just aimed at new investors, but existing investors, so that they invest more and expand into Indonesia. And if you cannot do that if you don't solve the problems that they encounter. I know specific examples where Pak Cahyo has come and provided solutions and interfaced in solving. And I think that's a fantastic 2 rules that you told us about, Pak Cahyo, about being accessible at all times. And I encourage all of you to make use of that, form a relationship with BKPM. They have a fantastic team here, and they'll be with you all the way to make sure that your investment here is smooth. I'd like to now, this is coming to the closing session. I'd like to talk a little bit about 2 things that were brought up. One is the IndiaTechZone, and the other is the India Business Desk. So I'm going to go around the table. I'd actually start with Ambassador Sandeep. You are one of the protagonists of the idea when you had a meeting with Darmono, and I happened to be there at the time, when you thought of this concept of let's have an India Tech Zone. And I know that Darmono has been talking about this since last year to me, saying, Sachin, why don't we think about having a special economic zone for Indian companies? And then it would be, what do you actually mean by a special economic zone, and what would be inside that? Why would it be called a special economic zone? What would be the benefits? So these are the hundreds of questions that came to my head when I heard about these ideas. So I think it would be a great opportunity for us to hear from the source, because here are the protagonists who are actually coming up with an idea which I believe is going to be groundbreaking. It's going to be a trigger, something which gives you access to a market of 4,000 factories in one area, in one belt. I think more than half the GDP of Indonesia is produced there in that belt. So what is this opportunity all about? Let's hear about how we can all be a part of this whole idea and this whole discussion, so that, you know, we can embed the footprint of Indian technology into that area. So maybe we start with you, Ambassador. I can just, yeah. Okay.
Thank you, Sachin. Before I get into India Tech Zone, I just want to respond to what Shinta was saying. I think both Shinta and Dr. Ilham made very pertinent points. On the renewable energy, I think Dr. Habibie also responded. I think there are regulatory challenges, and they are major challenges. I think the electricity power sector reforms in Indonesia have not kept pace with the technological innovation that has taken place with energy. And I will give you one example. For instance, in India, generation, transmission and distribution are unbundled. Anybody can generate and anybody can use the national transmission corridors, and anybody can distribute. Our companies try to set up independent renewable power plants in Indonesia, both in geothermal and in solar, but they do not have, there is no willing policy. So if you generate power, what will you do with it? So you are left to only do RE of, let's say, industries. But again, now there is a quota. So there is a quota fixed for Jakarta, quota fixed for West Java. So the moment you reach the quota, which is very small, you can't set up any more RE capacity even in factory rooftops. So there are these regulatory challenges. I think those need to be addressed, and you will find Indian energy companies, RE companies coming in, because the Indian market is getting saturated. There's only that much RE and that much wind and solar you can do. So they're looking for partnerships, and they want to come here. In fact, we have an Indian RE company here which is actually facing a regulatory challenge. So I think we need to address that first. The second point is the India business desk. So I was involved in 2 such business desks in my previous avatar, where we set up fast track mechanisms with Germany and France. So basically, it's a small agreement which I think I'll send you a draft. Basically, what happens is the mechanism meets every few months at the request of either party, and we collect the issues that are arising. And then we sit with, in India, for instance, the German fast track mechanism is the German ambassador and our Secretary of Industries. So here also we could have that kind of an arrangement, and we discuss the agenda, and we meet every 3-4 months, and at one moment all these issues are addressed, and the Indonesian side can invite their relevant ministries or provinces or state governments, and I think it's a fantastic mechanism, and we were able to resolve several issues. We would want that kind of a mechanism with Indonesia, and maybe it could be housed in BKPM, and it could have the chambers, APINDO, Kadin, and others involved. And because we are facing issues, and yesterday I met with Pandu of Dhanantara. Now Dhanantara is now wanting more investment, more FDI, and they are willing to partner with companies. And Dhanantara is also doing some kind of facilitation role. But Dhanantara converges very nicely here, because Pa Roshan is the CEO of Dhanantara. Pa Roshan is also the Minister of Investment and Downstreaming. So I think there is a lot of synergy between BKPN and Dhanantara. So we would like to host that mechanism in this ministry, and I think that will do wonders. Because you see, you're talking of investment figures. These days, these are very complex. For instance, there are Indian companies investing in Indonesia, but the money is not coming from India. There are people in this room, for instance, who have invested in Indonesia, but the money is coming from operation, let's say, in Dubai or Singapore. Okay. Now, and also sometimes the investment is not very visible. I'll give you a small example. We all know of Burger King and Popeye. Now, everybody thinks it's an American brand and it's an American investment. No. They invested $150 million into the chain of restaurants in Indonesia, but it has come from India. The CEO is Indian, the money is Indian. But you know, it camouflages as an American investment. So there are many of these stories, you know. But then, if the Popeye and Burger King guy has an issue, he will not go running to the American ambassador, they come to me. No, that is the point I want to make. Okay, and you know, and there have been issues. There have been issues. It's not that, you know, it's like, so sometimes, you know, what is Indian and what is not Indian actually gets confused. Okay, particularly when the Prime Minister of UK was an Indian, so you know, you can imagine the kind of confusion. And we almost had an Indian as the President of the United States. But maybe things would have been different. But that's the point I want to make. So that's the point I want to make. So what I am saying is that irrespective of the color of the money, if we think that, you know, an Indian investor or an Indian company or an Indian CEO is having issues, because the messaging is very, very common. If an Indian investment is facing difficulty in Indonesia, I think the messaging is that, you know, investments are facing difficulty. And if those are facilitated, the message is that it's easy to do business in Indonesia. So irrespective of where the money is coming from or where the company is situated, I think facilitation of business and investment is needed, particularly in these turbulent times when everybody would like to attract investment. We would like to have more, you know, country-to-country arrangements, not everything going up through certain routes. So we will look forward to that, and I think this is something which we should discuss, and we would want to work on that. I'll finish by mentioning Darmono's offer of IndiaTechZone. You mentioned several technologies, There are also technologies which we are not very familiar with. You know, for instance, blue economy technologies. The oceans are now the answer to some of our requirements of fertilizer or fuel. There is great deal we can work on seaweeds, on using the solar and the sea, power of the sea. You mentioned currents. So I think some of these technologies are being developed in India. For instance, IIT Madras has developed a lot of ocean technologies, and so I think if you have a place where we can display our technologies, Manish is bringing in Tejas and TCS. TCS has so many solutions for companies. If they have a place there and they can display, and 4,000 companies are in and about Jababeka. If they display, we have Geeta here with eMudra. You have some amazing technologies. If you could display those technologies or do courses or awareness programs, I think so many of our companies are present here who can, you have Alind here from Coforge, we have Aptech here. Aptech is right here. So Aptech is into, Aptech actually fits in well with your Movie Land dream projects, you know, because they are into animation. I think so many of our companies can display their skills, their wares, and if we go ahead with this project, I think it could be a permanent exhibition of Indian technology in Indonesia, and I don't think it is there anywhere in the world. That way, Indonesia could be a pioneer in terms of doing that. So at least from the embassy side, we will fully support the idea, and we hope that you know, we can get enough companies on board so that we can start. We may start small with a few, but once we have something on the ground, I think it will attract many more companies. Thank you.
But Darmono, would you like to add a little bit about, you know, because you've been talking about this for a while, and I think today is one of those days where this is all happening. In terms of the execution, steps are starting today. So would you like to add a few things on that?
Yes. Well, I think this has been a very good discussion. But the thing is how to implement it. It's always the thing is how to implement. Shinta has been also show her concern about not much happening, and also the small medium enterprises is not coming. So what I would suggest is, why now we follow this with our energetic ambassador to visit Jababeka, because seeing is believing. And over there, we can talk about these startups, about small to medium enterprises and so on, because we have a lot of land which we can give in a way financing or collateral for young people who have got ideas with innovation and so on to start something. So the idea also which we talked before was that how we can make it so, big in terms of the promotion. Like if we have a thunder, then we can actually start selling umbrella because the rain start to drop, right? So if we can do something very big in that area about the India and Indonesian partnership on developing new economies, especially the space of medium enterprise or small to medium enterprises, then we can utilize the so many idle assets in Indonesia. We have a lot of idle islands, idle lands, and also actually many idle buildings too. I just visited the new capital yesterday. So many nice buildings there, empty, which can be utilized. Yeah. But we need to empower the people. So again, Ambassador, if we can bring more Indian young people to study in Presiden University and many other universities in Indonesia, we have then the human infrastructure. We cannot just talk about physical infrastructure. We also need to build the human capital, the human infrastructure. Then the connection between India and Indonesia will be much easier because there are people who are going to implement it. Yeah. And those people who are going to implement are the young people who are hungry. Because a fat cat cannot catch mouse. We need the hungry cats. Yeah. Also our young people, yeah, the young people who are educated, come from good family, they are fat cats. Yeah. We need the hungry cats to work together. Because so much land, you know, Jawa is only 7% of total Indonesia, but 60% of Indonesians live in Jawa. Yeah. So you see, and the ocean is 2.5 times of the land. This is also needs to be explored. So it's just a lot of opportunities. Yeah. When we have a lot of problems with Shinta, that means we have a lot of opportunities, right? But we need to work together, Ambassador. Yeah. So let's make it happen. Yeah. Start small. Let's do something big, because President Prabowo already went to India. So let's invite him also to come to do something in Cikarang for this 70th anniversary of Asia Africa Conference, right? Yeah. We can do this also as a big event there, right? And then let's cooperate, because at that time, Prime Minister Nehru came here in 1955. Yeah. So Ibu Shinta, why don't we repeat it again? Indonesia should be again the leader of the emerging forces, yeah, to mediate conflict in the world. Yes. Yeah. Let's think big, but start small. Go to Cikarang first. Thank you.
In fact, you know, what Darmono says fits very much with his other book, which he has come out with. We should try and get a copy. It's called Building a Ship While Sailing. So that's a book which talks about exactly the kind of philosophies we are talking about. Let's get started. You can't wait for perfection. You know, get started and we'll build the ship while we are sailing. So Shinta, I want to check between you and Ilham about the India news, the India business desk. Some ideas, or maybe feel free to add anything else.
I have actually specific a recommendation that I would like to share. Because I'm triggered by the human capital aspect. This is what Indonesia needed the most. And we're talking about specifically on digital skills, for example, because we're boosting very much on the digital skills. So how can we leverage India experience to accelerate the Indonesia skilling agenda? I think this is something that we need to pay attention. So if we see over the past decade, India has major strides in mainstreaming the digital skills. So we know the initiative like Skill India, Digital India, Pradhan Mantri Kausal Vikas Yojana, right?
Yeah.
And platforms such as Wayam, Dixa,
Yes.
etc. So this platform have trained million in AI, cybersecurity, cloud computing, and so forth. Now, Indonesia, in its push to digitally empower 9 million people by 2030 and expand its digital talent scholarship and pre-employment card. So I wanted to specifically mention about our Kartu Prakerja. I don't know whether you know about that, because actually this can be utilized to be expanded on the digital talent. So we can adapt and customize this Indian framework to reach scale faster across our nation. So can we specifically have an arrangement on how we can work on this specific thing, how we can learn from India? Because I really believe the framework that India has can be replicated by Indonesia. So this is something that I would like to recommend. And also creating a shared understanding of future skill and the priorities on how to develop really the curriculum development. So I think education is one area that I wanted to touch, because this is very much related. And scalable talent development models, I think Indonesia have blended skilling, entrepreneurship training, innovation focused education. This is something that I think we can really work on. So when I look at, of course, this part, it has indirect link to investment, because at the end of the day, you want to invest, you need to also ensure that the people here, the jobs are ready, right? The skills are ready. So I think we need to have this kind of arrangement. And when we go back into the strategic partnership of what Indonesia, India has, I think it is very clear some of the areas of cooperation, but translating it into what really the business to business can help and create on the ecosystem, I think what is really important. So the policy governance, ecosystem alignment is important. Ambassador mentioned about, power wheeling and so forth. Ambassador, we have been pushing on this, but I don't think our government can budge. So if you look at the new law on the renewable, still you will not have power bill. So there are things that there's no way government can change. What can we do about it, right? This is my question. So this goes back to my last on Indian desk. So Indian desk is not just about promoting investment and bringing investment here. It's also not just about unlocking some of the issues that existing investor has. But we are also looking on how the ecosystem can be built. So this is about Indian desk that is not just as a place where we solve issues, right? But how we can create more also partnership. And partnership is not just about investing. Yes, investing, but not about investing financial investment to develop projects. This kind of partnership is also important. So I'm thinking about an Indian desk at BKPM. It can be, the problem with Indonesia is when you want to do so many things, you have one door but so many windows, right? How can we really link and have one place where a lot of the issues can be addressed there? And the BKPM can, the Ministry of Environment can be the link to all the different sectors, ministry, and so forth, including Danantara. Because right now, the BKPM and Danantara are working very closely together. So we're actually starting on the co-promotion as well, and then addressing many of the issues. So let's make this work. If we have an Indian desk, we have a dedicated place in which the Indian companies can really come to, and can be assisted to. I think things are perhaps going to move much faster. The high-level government to government is there, but translating that into real work on the ground, that is really the key. So I think all of us here have have many times following this kind of conversation. Let's make this happen. How can we really see the number has increased tremendously, but this is not enough. We know the potential is much more. Can we even double that number, right? This is what we want to target. Thank you.
Absolutely, fantastic. A big applause for Shinta for initiating this whole idea of putting together the India desk. Ilham, would you like to just talk about another point that Shinta mentioned about skilling? Because I know you're involved in Orbit, and actually, in fact, AppTech and Orbit are signing an MOU today, after this panel discussion is over, to collaborate for building skills, and in fact, in many sectors, including technology sectors as well as animation. Over to you, Ilham.
No, thank you, Sachin. Yeah, I just wanted to continue a little bit what Shinta just said. Yeah, it's true that doing things together requires a partnership, which is not only the investment is just the beginning of a long journey. And to basically go through that to all thick and thin, ups and downs together is not an easy thing to do. And what you just mentioned, we have a few examples already ongoing, and one of which would be the company you mentioned, basically Orbit, where I happen to be involved, and also the CEO is here present, an Indian gentleman over there, Nalin, and yourself too. And so this is already I think, an example of how things could work out if the partnership is a good partnership. And I think it is important to emphasize the role of the diaspora. Because without the diaspora, and there is a lot of Indonesian which have Indian origins or Indian that live in Indonesia for many, many years, like yourself, Sachin, that play a role in this. So in the end, it comes to particular person that are knowledgeable enough on both sides of the Indian Ocean. And therefore, I think if you see other investments that have been ongoing within other countries, the role of the diaspora has always been, I think, understated. It needs to be really emphasized, like things between United States and Vietnam, even within United States and China in the early phase, the role of the people that have gone to the United States, maybe not diaspora, but more the students have gone there in the millions and have come back to the United States. They have been crucial. So in the end, these kind of things we need to also look at in order to make this collaboration between our countries more successful. And from my own experience, because cultural is very important, also the way of how we deal with one another, there's a lot of synergy at work. And Indian and Indonesians are not the same, but they have enough similarity in order to make it happen once we find how to partner with one another. I think the culture aspect is, I don't want to, go too much into detail, but there's a lot of things in our history and the things that are important to us that we share. And that is, I think, a strong foundation for that kind of collaboration to, in the end, work out.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ilham. I think, Darmono, I believe you have to leave now. So we'd like to actually say thank you to Darmono for joining us. If you don't mind, can we continue the Q&A for about 10 minutes? But Darmono would leave. So we'll take you up on the offer of the India Tech Zone, Darmono. Thank you. So we'll continue with a bit of a Q&A session. Ibu Shinta is also here, but she'll be back soon. Maybe pass the microphone to the floor. Anybody would like to put a show of hands? Anybody would like to lead with a question? Yeah.
Yeah, good morning. Thank you very much. It
Thank
was
you,
a wonderful event. I'm from Association of Incubator Business Indonesia. I representing the chairman. When I read this, what we call it, trade balance between Indonesia and India, I was surprised that it's surplus for Indonesia. So is it India will going to tariff Indonesia? But anyway, it's just a kidding. I mean, it's just a joke. My next question will be then, I was involved in innovation ecosystem in Indonesia since I come back from Switzerland 4 years ago. And I believe, what we call it, I love the Guguram, for instance, ecosystem. Yeah, I've been in G20, in the startup ecosystem. I'm really impressed with your ecosystem, especially to build a founder like, for instance, Kit Plani here is one of the founder startup here. the thing is that how can we mix these founders between India and Indonesia, I think. Yeah, we do have a PD ecosystem in Ministry of Industry, not work so well because actually the idea to put the startup directly to the industry, but industry doesn't want to accept the startup because they said startup is just a new things, no? While startup people feel a little bit afraid with the CEO of big company. Yeah, this is very real. And in the last 3-4 years, nothing actually important happens. So again, to reach again, like Bu Shinta say, to 2045, 370 million people, Indonesian, got GDP of 25,000. How can we do it? I think Pak Erlangga said AI will quadruple or quintuple, yeah, the ecosystem. But how with AI compared to the real business? Thank you.
Thank you, thank you. Anybody would like to take that? So the question is more about how, startups find it very intimidating to work with large companies, and large companies don't want to work with startups. What could be the way that we could facilitate new technologies from startups to be adopted by the large companies? Maybe Shinta, you could, you and Ilham probably could. Yeah.
Well, it's a tricky question because in many cases, startups are actually disruptors. Yeah? So the technology and the business model created by them is depending on the large company, but most large companies are actually seeing startups as a threat. Yeah? So it's not an easy thing. Yeah? There are nimble big companies that could incorporate those technologies, but it's not it doesn't go without saying that there's a startup and it has good technology and the incumbent big companies, they see themselves as collaborators not being threatened at the same time. Yeah? I mean, we have examples, for instance, here in Indonesia. Before we had these ride-hailing companies, the market for called individual transportation was dominated by taxi companies. Of course, they see those as a threat. And in fact, the market was taken over to a big degree by those ride-hailing companies until some of them adopted technologies like that for themselves. Yeah? So they're adopters, but not necessarily collaborators. Yeah? So it is depending on the sector. There are other examples whereby so it depends on the complementarity of the technology and business model of that very startup to the big company. Yeah? So I think I cannot give you a standard answer because it really depends on what kind of startup, how is the overall market situation looking like in that particular sector where the startup wants to focus? Are the incumbent big companies seeing this as a threat, or is there potential of collaborate? So basically, no general answer to your question, sir. You're welcome.
Okay, I'll just add. Actually, I understand that this is actually an issue because obviously the access for startup to the big companies is also limited, right? So one area that we've been working on is because I have an Agile investment network. We also have a fund that we create with entrepreneurs. And I think one area that we have helped is the startups to be part of this community in which we, as entrepreneurs, we also invest and we also become mentors. And one area is helping and assisting startup to go link to the big companies. So that's how some of the startups that I nurture we have helped them. And I think particularly in APINDO, actually, we have about 50,000 small, medium enterprises and a lot of startups. So linking the access of startup to the big entrepreneurs is already a big step. It's a big step. Like we have a board of entrepreneurs that all consist of the big companies, conglomerates, and their next generation, and that really helps bring the startup to to get this facilitated to be linkage and not just to get the access to the big companies, but they are also being supported by the big companies. So I think this is how we need to look at how the entry point is and the linkage to the big companies. So if you do it on your own, knocking the door, yeah, even though you have a high-tech innovation that it's incredible, maybe it's difficult for big companies that doesn't know you to just say, okay, I'm going to try and use this technology. But I think if you have the right people who introduce you or connect you to those because they are part of your support system, then I think that's something that perhaps can be worked out.
Thank you very much. And I think we got to wind up the discussion now. If you have any more questions, you can directly talk to our panelists while they're here. I think we have to now focus on the next part of the agenda. If I'm not mistaken, we are actually signing a MOU between APTEC and Orbit. In fact, that's for skilling. It happens to be so, Ibu Shinta, there's already investors in the room who are looking at investing in building a network of skilling centers across Indonesia. APTEC is a large company. It's a public listed company out of India. And they are here today and they're collaborating with Nalin from Orbit Future Academy. That's going to be the closing ceremony here. But let me wrap up this session first. First of all, I think the key takeaways of our discussion today was that we actually have something actionable. Rather than having a very intellectual conversation, which usually happens in a lot of panel discussions, Indonesia Economic Forum tries to be a little bit more of an actionable platform. And I think we have succeeded in having a couple of key takeaways today, which brings me to this proud moment of remember the date 23rd of April, 2025, because there are few great ideas that have come up today, which we can see implementing along the way, like a ship that's being built while sailing. And I think the first one is the India desk, which Shinta has announced today should be underway. I would encourage everybody to work with the BKPM, Cahyo, because Shinta is doing that for BKPM as an advisor to BKPM. But she would obviously bring together APINDO and CADIN and all the other organizations that she's involved with in order to be able to complete the loop and connect the dots between what is actually needed. So that's one great takeaway. 23rd April, yeah, Ibu Shinta. The second is what Pa Darmono and Pa Sandeep said about the IndiaTechZone. I think that's another great takeaway, that we have a project to pursue, which is more about demonstrating, displaying Indian technology to a captive audience of 4,000 factories, which are only in that area, but it doesn't stop you from promoting to the rest of Indonesia. And all the other things that come with it is because you will see an Indian ecosystem. You'll see a Ganesha restaurant being there. You're going to see an Ayurveda spa is being built in Cikarang. You're going to see so many other ecosystem players coming there because there is a little India being built in Cikarang. So I think that's another great takeaway. And I think Ambassador, 23rd April marks almost like a kickoff for that project as well. And I think the skilling is the third initiative that APTEC is here with Nalin's team and with Pa Ilham, saying that, this should be one of these cooperations which can help build national level skilling across the nation. And I think APTEC, you should consider, a little bit more of an aggressive push to make use of, the things that were discussed today and something we can discuss later. So thank you once again to all of you. I'd like to close the panel discussion so that we can go into the MOU signing. Please remember that there is a nice lunch that's served here. We would love for you to be here to be able to network, get to know each other. We hope to have more such interactions once in 3 months for the Indian community. And IIBF, Poonam is here, and CII, Sujata is here. We would work together to create such interfaces for us to get together. And with the India desk, with Cahyo here, I think that could be the formula, Yapa. BKPM, CII, IIBF, INCHAM works together to create that interaction once in 3 months or something like that. And I'd be happy to help put it together. Thank you very much, and a warm round of applause for our panelists.